The grinds, the quests. There's so much to do in RuneScape, so much to explore. Today we'll be exploring the rich history of RuneScape. If you really want to understand the game you're playing, you have to know its history. Welcome to the story behind the Barrows brothers. You have probably killed them more times than you can even count. But have you ever thought about why they were in those tombs and how they became white? After this video, you will know what happened to them and you have learned some lessons from their story. This video will be a long one with a few parts. The first part will be about the Morytania campaign, giving some insights in what the brothers did in Morytania. The second part will be about two books that were written about the armor and power of the brothers and what happened to them. The third part will be lessons that can be learned from the Barrows brothers' story and how we can apply those lessons to our own lives. The Barrows brothers consisted out of 6 brothers: Arim, Guffin, Darok, Karil, Torag and Verak. These brothers went on a campaign to conquer southern Foreign Tree, now called the Wilderness, during the God Wars. And afterwards they ventured into Morytania, leading the Morytania campaign. The Morytania campaign was started by the Ceradonists in Mistlin. The nation had fallen to Dracon's continued raids and the Ceradonists wanted to save their nation. So they formed an army of the strongest warriors they could find, including 6 young and promising brothers who had been provided power, weapons and armor by the Zeroji Majorat Slikske. With a force of several thousand men and the 6 brothers at their head, the Crusaders left their humble homes in the west and crossed the river south into Morytania. There are tomes that speak of their great deeds. A particular tome called Legends of the Brothers has an interesting tale. During the Great God Wars, there were 6 brothers who fought side by side against the forces of evil. Their fervor in battle was awed and feared by all who saw them. Nothing is known about their origins, only that they were the first seen when the legions of evil were pressing their hardest into the civilized lands. It was the eldest who struck the first blow in that battle, hurling powerful battle magic into the enemy's ranks, opening a hole for the 4 of the other brothers to charge through and into the hearts of their forces. Little was seen or known of the 6th brother at the time, only that when one of the other brothers looked in danger, his foe would be felled by a shower of crossbow bolts. It wasn't until the dust had settled that those left could look unto their saviors, the 6 brothers who stood proud with the bodies of the fallen at their feet. The 6th brother was probably Karil, because of the crossbow bolts that were fired by the 6th. And Karil is the only brother with a crossbow. For years these brothers fought hard against the enemy, throwing themselves into battle with little regard for their own safety, and relying on each other for aid. Stories were told around campfires by soldiers of the feats they had witnessed. They became legend long before the end. Notice that it is said, relying only on each other for aid, meaning that they could heal each other, or they got no battle wounds while in combat. The skill set of each brother complemented each other. Some say he'd always been there, but no one really knows for sure. The first real tale was after an incursion deep into the Darklands, where once again the brothers proved their worth. It was after the battle that a bent-robed figure was seen amongst the bodies of the dead. Most took him for a scavenger, but he moved towards the campfire of the brothers with such directness. Some at first thought him another companion. The brothers, however, reacted as with suspicion at his approach, drawing their weapon and rising from their places. The stranger merely stood before them, as thought sizing them up before turning and walking back into the mists. Some say that it's the first time they'd ever seen the brothers unsure. The Dark Lands is Morytania, after Dracon invaded. The brothers were aggressive when they saw the mysterious figure. This figure gave the brothers their weapons, so a normal response would be that they were nice and appreciating towards the figure, but instead, they drew their weapons when they saw the figure. As the campaign moved deeper into the Darklands, the stranger appeared with a greater frequency, often appearing on a rise near a battle and watching over it. The most disturbing thing was how his presence started to affect the brothers. They became distracted, and on occasion even received injuries that required attention. It is clear to see that the brothers didn't want to disappoint the figure and therefore made mistakes. There is something to learn from this. Don't be afraid to disappoint people. Try to do your best and don't stress out. It was deep in the heart of the enemy's territory, in the failing light of dusk, that the enemy struck back. Great monstrosities swept through their camps, tearing at all in their path. Soldiers scattered like chaff in the wind before the onslaught. The brothers, valiant as ever, stood back to back before the enemy and fought with all their might. As dawn broke, the enemy fled the battle, moving faster than any man could give it chase. It was as the soldiers went about rebuilding the camp that the brothers collapsed at their campfire. They lay as stuff, yet breathing muttered in strange tongues. Their injuries were found swollen and infected. None of the physicians knew what to do. It was like no infection they had ever seen before. All through the day the brothers were tended and cared for, while the soldiers waited nervously for their heroes to rise once again. It was then, just as the sun's last rays vanished behind the horizon, that all hope was lost. As if on cue, all the 6 brothers sighed one last breath and died. It was only then that the stranger once again, standing on a rise just outside the camp. Somehow the stranger had the power to change the course of the campaign. He made it so that the brothers couldn't heal their wounds. That night the camp was surrounded by the great beasts of the enemy once again, but they didn't attack. They merely baited the soldiers to come out and meet them. Once again at the break of dawn, the enemy fled without a trace, leaving the soldiers tired from a restless night to worry and fear. That day the commanders decided to turn back. They could advance no further without the brothers' aid. As was the custom of the time, out of honor and respect for the mighty fallen, they constructed 6 great barrows for their brothers. A crypt for each brother covered in a small hill of earth that would hold their remains undisturbed by predators. The work took many days, for each night the enemy returned and the soldiers had to flee back inside their camp to wait the night to the sounds of howling and scratching at the fences. But each day, they resumed their work. Their sense of duty to the brothers surmounted their fear of the dark forces in the land. On the last day, the assembled troops buried the brothers inside their stone tombs. Then with great reverence, but little ceremony, they covered the tombs with earth. As the brothers broke camp and turned the march back to their lands, the stranger was seen once again, standing atop the central barrow. Standing tall against the failing light with his arms outstretched to the sky. We just read about why the barrows were made. We can read that it was a custom for the time to build barrows for the fallen heroes. Although not many other barrows have been discovered, here we see the stranger once again on the central barrow. The stranger didn't say anything but just watched. What was he thinking? And why did he take their power and focus? To answer this question, we have to look at his character. We know the name of this mysterious figure. His name is Slikske. Slikske is a Zerosian Magyara. He was described by Azandra as Slikse, the serpent-tongued who delved the shadows. Slikse enjoyed using tricks and lies to manipulate others while being elusive unless he desires to seek you himself. Although supposedly a devout Zerosian, Slikske was very unlike his fellow Zerosian Magyara. In line with his titles, Slikske was extremely cunning, confident, an excellent liar and able to betray allies at a whim. He often works towards his goals while making his allies believe what they want. More is known about Slikske, but there's so much that there will probably be a full video on Slikske somewhere in the future. Now we know more about the character of Slikske, we can see why he took the power away from the Barrows brothers. He gave them weapons to make them stronger, and when they were on their apex, he let them be killed so they could serve as his wives. There is another transcript that you can find in the Varric library called The Fall of Six. which also describes the rise and the fall of the Barrows brothers, but focuses a little bit more on the mysterious figure. I will now read parts of the transcript because there is important information to be gotten from it. The stranger had watched the campaign from its first footfall into the lands east of the river, always from afar. His lidless eyes were affixed to the 6 commanders, resplendent in their armor, their weapons poised to attack as yet unmet foes. Behind each commander, a phalanx of war-hardened soldiers. The metallic armor glinted even in the pale light of these dead lands, brilliant fingers of light, inching towards the hearts of Hellovale. Here we get some more insight in the appearance of Sliske. It is said he had lidless eyes. A phalanx is also mentioned. The Falling Knights are the human force who fight in a single huge formation called the phalanx. They are armed with huge 5-meter long pikes and deployed in such a way as to create an unassailable line across the battlefield. We can see that the forces behind each commander were very skilled soldiers. The 6 were brothers, hailing from one of the smaller townships of Mistelin. They had shown a glimmer of prowess in battle even back then, though their chores as farmers chewed up much of their time. Here it is said that they used to be farmers, and from one of the smaller townships of Mistelin. As most great heroes, they could come from Lumbridge. Their thirst for fame is what led the strangers to them. For although their skills were unmatched in their township, they desired to be the best of all men. And the stranger had promised them this, for he knew power and could grant it. His long years had taken him to many distant lands where he collected much arcane knowledge and many artifacts of value and strength. And it was those very weapons and armors he had given them that they now wielded, which granted them their desire. If they had not been blinded by such desires, had heard the deviousness in the stranger's voice, or could have seen the calculating eyes hidden deep within the dark recesses of his cowl, then they may have taken a different path. Here we see the first part of the fall of the Barrows brothers, wanting to become more and not thinking about what the power would do. The stranger came from the same planet as Zamorak, in which strong magic artifacts reside. This is where the Barrows brothers got their strong equipment. Arim, the eldest brother, crumbled his foes with powerful magics and sapped their strength and their will to fight. Darak and Guffin, the next eldest, did not need their foes to be weakened to decimate them. Great axe cleaving limbs from bodies, spear skewering organs. Should any enemy manage to survive long enough and have the chance to strike a blow, Carol would fire a swath of bolts to pepper their chests as they took their swing, throwing them back. This battle was the campaign's most unrelenting and bloody. The brothers' confidence and skill had grown over the years as the power they wielded made them feel invincible, made them living heroes to their followers. The straggling enemy survivors were routed, but even they were cut down. Trying as they might to flee, Torak pounded them into the dirt, and their prayers rang hollow as Varak flaked the skin from their bones. Another victory. Here we see the power of the Barrows brothers. This was their apex. A thin smile slowly curled upon the stranger's mouth, snagged teeth protruding, and he thought, truly, they are worthy, now is the time. Before he slowly and deliberately turned heel and made his way down the cliff top perch to the battlefield remnants below, and the camp the brothers' army was now constructing. Slixe finally had the strong warriors he wanted, and would turn them into his whites. The silent stranger's message could only be heard in the brothers' minds, a raspy, conspiratorial whisper. The time has come, my brothers. The gifts I bestowed upon you have served you well, and you in turn have served your God. Now it is time to begin your servitude to me, to my God. You shall stand ever vigilant for his return, and then you will be champions in his glorious army. we shall have victory against the usurper, but first, you must die. Here we read more about the power that Slixe possessed. He can talk to people without even using his voice. Here he made the brothers afraid and spread doubt of their power. This is what ultimately created the downfall. On the last day, he watched the crypts being covered and the burial mounds completed, and the remnants of the brothers' army turned their back on the dark to begin their long journey home. As they passed from view, he turned, again walking deliberately and slowly towards the brothers, now dead, and interred their barrows. Arms outstretched atop the central mound, the stranger chanted in some foul, ancient language, casting his old magic. A vulgar purple light formed in front of him, fell to the earth and bled into each of the barrows. That was the end of the transcript. There is a very interesting fact that I have to mention. We can see that Guffin is wearing a Legendscape, but according to the headmaster of the Legends Guild called Radumus Erkel, he found the Legends Guild in the year 149 of the 5th Age. But Guffin came from the 3rd Age. This means that the time between the death of Guffin and the founding of the Legends Guild is more than 1,000 years. But Guffin already had a Legendscape back in the 3rd Age. Could this be a potential quest? There are a few lessons to learn from the story of the Barrows brothers. Lesson 1. The Barrows brothers wanted to become the best and eventually traded in their life for that power. We can correlate this to our own lives, in the struggle to get the most money and the most power. Some of us trade in huge amounts of time, and because of that also friendships, to get more wealth and maybe a higher status, so we can show our wealth to other people. But is this wealth something you really need? We all need to reflect on our lives and watch out that we don't suffer the same fate as the Barrows brothers. Wealth isn't a bad thing to want, but what we sacrifice for it is very important to keep in mind. Lesson 2. Most of us fail when we want to show someone how good we are at a game. So did the Barrows brothers. They only failed when they saw Sliske was watching them. You shouldn't care if you fail when somebody's watching. Keep a leveled head and you will see that you won't fail when somebody else is watching. Lesson 3. It's almost the same as lesson 2, but this is about straight contact. The Barrows brothers were afraid and aggressive when Slixe came. They immediately drew their weapons when they came. Then he said they would die. This made them weak without even hurting them physically. We can draw the lesson: don't think too much about what other people say to you or about you. It's only their opinion, and they don't have a say on what you are going to do with your life, and they have their own narrow view of the world. Guys, this is the end of the video. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, please leave a like and leave a comment. Can you please also leave a comment about what you think of the lessons, and if you appreciate me reading books in the series. Also, don't forget to check out my Twitter. So thanks again, guys, and goodbye.